Tila slipped into the gallery undetected, shadowing her boyfriend. Her heart pounded as she braced herself, anticipating who he was secretly meeting. She knew it was another woman, but when she saw the painting prominently displayed on the back wall, the floor fell from beneath her feet. What she uncovered was the depth of his betrayal and the real reason he had lied about where he was going. For Tila, 21, it had been 5 years since she had looked into those eyes, but the hurt still lived quietly inside her. This was the first time she had seen the painting of her father Moses since the day she lost him. It was supposed to be a gift for him to see himself the way she did, full of light, but it became a memorial. Light snow flurries drifted in the air outside of Dolan's gallery, which was filling up quickly from the group showing tonight. Moments ago, Tila had successfully followed her boyfriend Lyle over 45 minutes away from home because of a suspicion that he was seeing someone else. At 47, Lyle's salt and pepper beard contrasted well against his red scarf and black hat. He had taken extra care in his appearance, wearing a red blazer that Tila had never seen before. Despite being in a relationship with him for 3 years, she felt insecure, especially around his friends, like a little girl listening in on adult conversations, not because of their 26-year age gap, but because he often acted like her father instead of her lover, correcting and scrutinizing everything she did. Tila first met Lyle at his weekend art class when she was only 14. Over the years, she became one of his favorite students. He often doted on her because she was an extraordinarily gifted painter. He was supportive of her art and even came to her father's memorial service. After her father's passing, when her own uncles left her to be swallowed up in the system and she was placed in a group home, they kept in touch. He would bring her food and little gifts. When she aged out of the system at 18, Lyle took her home with him. At first, the relationship was awkward. She had never seen him in that light, but he saved her, despite her being a broken young girl, helping her as she wrestled with the grief of losing her father. But his love and care did not last. He had grown cold and irritable, starting arguments about everything. The chicken was too spicy, or she forgot to mop the floor. Tila, still grieving the loss of her father, whom she secretly blamed for abandoning her, withdrew into herself. Most days, she didn't feel alive, but drifted in an unknown dimension outside of this world. Her insecurities only worsened over the last few months because of his odd behavior, the whispers, and going outside to take calls, installing locks on his office door. A few times she eavesdropped, and hearing the softness in his laugh only confirmed that he was speaking to another woman. But to her surprise, it wasn't a woman. Instead, he was posing as the artist who painted the portrait of her father, a betrayal worse than cheating. Tila read the "Do Not Touch" sign next to the large unframed canvas, then looked over her shoulder to see if anyone else was around. The other attendees were listening to the speeches taking place on the other side of the wall, giving her time to come to grips with what she was seeing. With trembling hands, she touched the canvas, gliding her fingers down the surface. She examined the painting in awe, as if it weren't her brushstrokes that had brought it to life. In the bottom right-hand corner was Lyle's signature. Somehow he painted over her name. It was all too much. Tila's eyes filled with water, blurring her vision. She hadn't heard her own voice in years, but rage, the betrayal boiled over, and her feet were moving before her brain could catch up. How could you? In front of the crowd, she screamed, pointing her finger at Lyle. Her chest heaved at a furious pace. Her screams echoed through the gallery walls, hushing the speech. The shock of seeing her was all over Lyle's face. How could you do this to me? To my father? She cried, not caring about stares or what anyone thought. What is going on? Security? An older woman with silver hair wearing large, round frame glasses yelled out as whispers rippled through the crowd. No, that won't be necessary. Lyle put his hand up. His shoulders carried his nervousness, which flowed to the tips of his fingers that moved across the air as if he were playing the piano. I know her. She's one of my students. Looks like she had too much to drink. I'll see her out. Lyle grabbed Tila by the forearm, nearly dragging her through the crowd. She could see the shock and curiosity in people's eyes as they struggled to the door. Once outside in the cold, he pulled her to the side of the building, out of view from the gallery's large windows. You're a thief, she poked his chest after he let go of her arm. Shut up, he demanded. His piercing eyes bore a hole into her soul. His face transformed into something evil. After all I've done for you, take care of you, you owe me this. He stepped into her face, close enough for their bodies to touch. If it weren't for me, you would be on the streets, which is where you will be if you mention this to anyone. And if you think I'm bluffing, Shelley, the curator, is ready to call the police. I will let her. Call them so I can tell them what you did. His sinister laugh sent chills down Tila's spine. Tell them you can't prove a thing. You will look like a fool. No one will believe you, especially with what you just pulled inside the gallery. There are over 100 people in there who witnessed your outbursts. To them, you are just a drunk lunatic. Now go home, and if you play with me, I will ruin your life. He gave her a shove before turning his back and walking off. It might as well have been a physical hand that struck her chest, because the blow was powerful enough to stop the air from traveling through her lungs. She fell against the cold brick, hyperventilating. Off came the wig, hat, and glasses, the disguise she used when following him, dropping them into the snow. Tears and snot ran down her face as she struggled to get her breathing under control. Later that night, determined not to go home, Tila walked into the hotel to book a room, but her credit card was declined. The same thing happened at the ATM when she attempted to withdraw cash. Lyle was sending her a message. He was in control, and there was nothing she could do about it. Tila walked into the empty house with eyes swollen and red from crying. She looked around the 3-bedroom bungalow that she shared with Lyle, realizing that it never felt like home. As if waking from a long slumber of grief, she could now comprehend the things that never felt quite right in her spirit about this whole situation with him. She believed he had good intentions, but now she could see all the red flags that she had either missed or ignored. Like his being an artist and an art teacher, but her seeing none of his work. Or the times he would ask where she stored her other paintings, despite telling him repeatedly that she did not know where they were. A blanket of despair wrapped around Tila because of what she had lost. This was her fault, because she had given him the painting for safekeeping. Stealing her work must have been his plan all along. For Tila, art began and ended with her father. He said that an artist like her comes around only once every few generations. Her ability to capture life on canvas was profound, a rare gift from God, a gift that did not belong to her, but one that was to be shared with the world. Truthfully, she didn't understand the responsibility that he spoke of. Painting was only what she loved to do. It came naturally and sharpened through the years with her father's guidance. Tila paced the floor as her frustration grew. She wanted to pack her things and leave, but go where? She worried Lyle would get away with his fraud, and there was no proof to show otherwise. When she went into the group home, except for a few mementos, she left everything behind, including her notebooks and sketches. She wondered, what would her father do? Tila went into the closet and took down the box from the shelf. She wiped the dust off the top and opened the lid. Her hands trembled as she held her father's black leather Bible. She hadn't stepped into a church since his funeral because she had been angry with God for taking him. And knowing old Moses, he would not be pleased. "You don't question God," she could hear him say in her heart. Stuffed inside his Bible were notes and old church programs. Tila closed her eyes and recited Psalm 23, "The Lord is my shepherd," by heart, the scripture that her father taught her to say in times of trouble. Then she prayed for the first time in years. When she finished, she didn't have any answers, but she knew her father would want her to fix things. He wasn't a quitter and didn't run from his problems. He would want her to fight, just like he would if he were still around. The next day, she woke up surprised to find that Lyle had never come home. She dressed quickly, ate, and at the last minute grabbed her father's Bible, stuffing it into her bag. It made her feel close to him. When she walked into the gallery this time, only a handful of people were walking around viewing the art. With trepidation, Tila marched to the back wall and stood in front of her painting. She needed to talk to her father. The likeness was haunting, even with the various colors that she used. She needed to tell him she was sorry, and looking in his eyes was better than staring at his name on a headstone. She closed her eyes and imagined him standing there, then poured out her heart. When she opened her eyes, she almost jumped out of her skin when realizing that the silver-haired woman, Shelley, from last night was standing next to her. Amazing, isn't it? It's a rarity to see something like this that is so breathtaking and expressive. I would have given him a solo show if he had other pieces half as good. "How much would this painting go for?" Tila asked. "I can tell you I already have 2 offers for it. However, I am not at liberty to say how much. That information is for the artist. But I will say high 6 figures, possibly 7, with the right encouragement." "What if I told you I was the artist, the real one?" A knowing smile spread across Shelley's face. "While I did not appreciate the spectacle last night, I knew that there was more to this story. I'm no fool. You do not produce a work as stunning as this and don't have any others to show. And I don't make it a habit to eavesdrop on personal conversation unless I have something to gain. But based on what I just heard, I might be inclined to believe you. That is, if you can prove it. Can you? I don't know. Well, I can't help you otherwise, but come back and see me if you come up with something. I'll delay the sale for a little while. The last thing I need is to be involved in a nasty litigation. But don't wait too long. Tila nodded her head, wondering how to get the proof. She turned to walk away when Shelley asked, "What do you call it?" She was still staring at the painting. Tila smiled. "Daddy." Even though nothing was resolved, Tila felt good after leaving the gallery, no longer feeling like a scared and depressed little girl running from her problems. She was sticking up for herself. Taped to the window of a building that she was passing was a pink piece of paper that read, "Sometimes the bravest thing is leaving." Tila took it as a sign. She didn't know how she was going to do it, but she was going to leave Lyle and prove that he had stolen her work. She boarded the train and pulled out her father's Bible, flipping through the pieces of paper shoved inside. She noticed, wedged between Jude and Revelations, was a postcard with a picture of the Mona Lisa on one side. Surprisingly, on the other was her name. Tila, if you are reading this postcard, you are looking for some answers. Go see Miss Geneva. She will help you. Love, Dad. Goosebumps rose on her skin. It was like her father to know what she needed at the right time. She wasn't sure how Miss Geneva could help her, but she trusted her father because he always knew what was best. Standing in front of the old duplex transported her back in time. Everything looked the same as she last remembered. For years, she and her father lived on one side while Miss Geneva lived on the other. Before Tila could lift her hand to knock, the door swung open. "Tila? Is that you? Oh, thank God. I have been looking for you." Geneva, an older woman in her 70s, pulled Tila inside her apartment, which also looked the same. After a long embrace, she pulled her into the living room. "My God, you have grown into such a beautiful young woman. I have something for you." She took out a thumb drive and a large photo album from a drawer. Inside were Polaroids of her work over the years that her father had cataloged. On this thumb drive, you will see the security footage from your old apartment. Your dad had a camera set up pointed right at your easel. He knew he was sick and wanted to make sure you were protected. So he had the security downloads come to me as backup. Geneva pulled a key from her housecoat pocket. "Follow me. I have one more thing to show you." They walked out of the apartment through the side door, then down a few steps to the basement. Geneva removed the padlock and pushed open the door. Lined against all four walls were canvases of all sizes. Everything that Tila had ever painted was in that room. In the following weeks, a lot had changed for Tila. She had moved out of Lyle's house and hadn't seen him since that night at the gallery. She also took the security footage to Shelley, proving that she indeed was the artist who painted her father's portrait. Shelley connected Tila with an attorney who was working with the police to see if they could bring charges against Lyle. Despite receiving a hefty offer for the painting, to Shelley's dismay, Tila decided not to sell it because it was far too valuable to her. But she gave Shelley a few other paintings to display, which made her more than happy. Tila was also now in therapy to help her heal from her grief, and she was painting once again. If this story spoke to you, you are not alone. Subscribe for a new uplifting story every week. Until next time.